One thing that I noticed after living in Tokyo for a few months now, I've definitely gotten way more self-conscious. Like, I lived in the States, right? Going to grocery stores and like whatever, like I can wear like the bummiest fit and I wouldn't care, right?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone's gonna take this, but I really hate it when people go out in public dressed like they just got out of bed or like they're homeless. I'm not old enough to remember when people used to wear suits on planes. However, I am old enough to remember when going to the store in your pajamas was highly frowned upon. But now it's just normal, and I think what comes along with not taking pride in how you present yourself is worse overall behavior.
But now, like, even if I go to kombini, I feel like I need to be wearing like a decent fit. And that's something that like would have never happened if I was still in the States. And it's probably because everyone always looks so good.
Right, you should feel bad about looking like a slob every day in public, and in other videos when I say that we should be borrowing the good parts from certain cultures, this is what I mean. Encouraging pro-social behaviors is more of what this country needs, because it just seems like these days, a vast portion of the people who are big on social media model tons of behavior that will make people hate you.
Hi, I told you you're hot before, but might have been the dark lighting.
What?
Might have been the dark lighting.
Oh.
This guy Clavicular quite possibly has the worst social skills out of any popular influencer. Don't worry, she got him back though.
I thought you'd be taller in person. What? I thought you'd be taller in person.
He's going to cry about that the minute he gets home. But outside of being famous for being a degenerate, there's a real societal cost to lots of people not having social skills, as well as exhibiting antisocial behavior or having a series of behaviors that actively piss people off. And the cost is that these things seem to be a large contributor to political radicalism on both sides. And this lack of social skills can really lead to the promotion of some horrendous policies, more so because the ones in favor of them are depressed people with endless free time who like to engage in activism as some sort of outlet to make themselves feel good, and not because they're fighting for some moral cause that actually helps people. Which brings us to our main character, Eevee. You might recognize her from that one video that I did a little while back as the girl who uses a massive amount of AI in all of her videos to edit her face to look like a doll, which is very visually disturbing. But in this video, she's going to talk about racism in a way that I think is very politically radical. And what I would like to do is talk about all the antisocial behaviors that led her to those beliefs that most people don't agree with. But before that, recently a jury ordered Meta and YouTube to pay millions for their role in designing and promoting addictive platforms. They knew their apps could contribute to anxiety, depression, and body image issues, but did not share those risks while prioritizing profits. If you or your child spent years growing up on social media and experienced serious mental health struggles, you should hear this. Morgan & Morgan is stepping up to hold these platforms accountable for the harm they caused. You can use the link in my description or scan the QR code to take a short quiz to see if you qualify for a case. You may be entitled to a potential recovery of over $1,000. All right, let's get into it.
For today's video, I wanted to discuss a more serious topic, and we're going to be talking about racism in the cosplay community. I do want to put some content warnings for this video because it has quite a few topics that will be triggering for a lot of people, obviously including racism, discrimination. We're also going to be talking about a lot of kind of quite scary right-wing beliefs. So if any of those topics sound like they are too upsetting for you to hear, please take care of yourself and your mental health first, and I will see you in the next video.
See what I mean by lacking in social skills? One of the trigger warnings was, I'm going to talk about ideas you don't agree with. I like how she starts off political content that's intended for adults by saying, hey, if you're too emotionally weak to listen to an already biased version of this story that's designed to make you feel like a good person, then feel free to skip this video.
Something that really shocked me is that a lot of fans of the anime Frieren are adamantly right-wing. And you might just think, oh, that's a coincidence.
Oh no, people who like the same cartoon as you have different political beliefs. How terrible.
I was wondering why that is the case. I came across the account of one of the most shocking racist women that I have ever seen on the internet. But I saw her cosplay of a character called Frieren, where she cosplayed Frieren as an ICE officer. Her description in her account reads, wife, pro-white, reject the global, revere the local. Now, already from this bio, you can kind of tell what type of person this is, and anyone who says pro-white, I'm already going to assume some quite concerning things.
Why? Why would that be concerning? You have Black empowerment, Mexican pride, India #1. Why is it suddenly a problem when a white person expresses interest in their own race and culture? especially considering that this statement is likely a reaction to the mountains of anti-white propaganda that's been going on for the past 15 years or so. This screenshot was kindly provided by the Twitter user that Eevee is criticizing. If you start telling people that they have to choose between protecting their own children and being called a Nazi, you're not going to like the outcome. Sounds base to me. And speaking of kids, radical leftists love throwing anti-white propaganda at children to make them feel bad for being born white. They make books about it, they make news documentaries on it. They also love diversity quotas where they say, hey, it would be really great if less white people were at this job or in this college. Or someone like this next person will say, there are too many white people in the room, and I don't like that.
Sorry to the Asian community, but I am anti-Asian meetup. The only mixed race Asian representation that exists on this scale is Asian representation. Generally, I'm just not a fan of whiteness being centered around the conversation for mixed race people.
There are just too many white Asians, so we all agree that this black girl is a racist, right? I mean, I think Eevee is using so much time learning how to edit her face with AI tools that she has missed all the incredible amounts of racism that is thrown at white people on a regular basis.
Get my face on the camera. We kill crackers. Where I come from, we kill them.
Meanwhile, their example of whites being racist is us saying, hey, could you stop committing crimes and trying to propagandize our children to hate themselves? But to give a little background on this story from Eevee, the primary focus is centered on a Twitter personality and cosplayer who goes by Mac, and her cosplay of the main character from Frieren as an ICE agent. For those of you who haven't seen the show, it's about a female elf who's lived for 1,000 years. I'm not going to give a summary of the entire plot, but just so you know what part they're referring to, Frieren in the show is known for stopping the most powerful demon and bringing peace to the world. The main story of Frieren is something else, but on episode 7 of season 1, there's a subplot where we see a resurgence of some demons years after the strongest one was defeated. In this arc, demons are trying to get the town leader to remove a protective barrier so the foreigner demons can freely enter whenever they want, if that doesn't sound like a metaphor for something. And Frieren, an elf who has prior experience with their kind, gets put in jail for warning the town leadership to not trust demons. While she's in prison, she says these lines that have been memed like crazy.
Demons use words to trick humans. You can't trust a thing they say. They're monsters who learn to speak. Monsters who found they could lure in humans by crying, help me.
So obviously this is like a metaphor and an important life lesson warning against dishonest people, and demons from the show are the stand-in that the writers are trying to use to teach that lesson to the audience. A part of the appeal of the show is that Frieren does not have empathy for those who want to use emotional manipulation to take advantage of her or destroy her.
Why would you call out to a mother you've never known?
It's simple. That word stops humans. Isn't that magical?
That being said, Eevee's video centers around this particular subplot of Frieren because people have been using metaphors of that arc of the show to talk about immigration and ICE. So that's the background to all of this. Also, for fans of the show, yes, she's going to pronounce Frieren incorrectly the entire time.
And I did originally make like a video stitching her cosplay, showing my Frieren cosplay as an actual fan of the series. And I want to talk about why this is such a mischaracterization of the character and in general of anime. The anime is very clear that Frieren is very angry about demons. And you can see from this person's post, she refers to people who are being deported as demons.
I like how she calls herself a real fan of the show, but can't pronounce the name correctly. And right, Mac is the fake fan because she has a different opinion than you. Actually, never mind, that kind of logic is pretty common in the anime community. However, I don't think the metaphor is misapplied at all when talking about illegal immigration in America, considering how many people relentlessly violate immigration laws in the US, followed by fake crying and saying, "I'm so sad, please help me," when they are rightfully deported.
Kaylee says she first came to the U.S. 12 years ago, fleeing her home country of Honduras. Now she juggles 3 different cleaning and construction jobs here in North Carolina, while raising a family of 4. After being detained by ICE in February, Kaylee says she was allowed to stay until her next hearing.
Can you imagine a result where you had to return to Honduras and leave your kids behind?
No me lo puedo imaginar.
I can't imagine it.
She's like, feel sad for me, but also I'm going to orphan my kids instead of taking them with me if I get deported. What in the hell?
Demons are monsters, and like all monsters, they don't raise their young. Once born, you are abandoned.
She lives here for 12 years, gets free schooling for her kids, doesn't pay into the system, doesn't speak English, and is basically stealing resources from hardworking Americans. I mean, basically, this is a soft form of slavery. And when Americans who don't want to work for someone else without financial reimbursement say, hey, stealing is wrong, slavery is wrong, stop doing that, we're the bad people. Do you see why Twitter users are memeing this moment in Frieren now? But staying on topic, when it comes to antisocial behavior, one of the things that's very consistent with political radicals like this entitled British girl is an extreme lack of empathy. And you can tell that this is present because her standard is that racism is bad, while she ignores all the incredible amounts of anti-white racism that's occurred very overtly over the past decade and a half.
So I put this up because I really want any white person in the room to know up front that this is what we're dealing with. You're always going to be racist, actually. I believe that white people are born into not being human, and that's what y'all are taught to do, to be demons. So in this particular way, white people are all racist.
I mean, there are just tons of abhorrently racist videos like this from black people on the internet, not to mention the people who openly support Carmelo Anthony or DeCarlos Brown for stabbing white people. Now, what empathy from Eevee in this situation would look like is her saying something like, I get why Mac would feel that way towards foreigners because of things like anti-white racism, but I still believe she's out of line here when she calls people demons. Ultimately, I may not end up agreeing with Eevee, but these are the kinds of words that I would be expecting to hear from a person who's empathetic. Instead, what we actually got was this.
And as we all know, X is used by right-wing grifters. That is the majority of the popular people on X are people who are talking about racist and horrible things. Because that is the type of environment that Elon has facilitated. And it is where these people can go because they get banned off Instagram, they get banned off TikTok, they sometimes even get banned off of YouTube because their content is harmful.
No, Twitter has always been racist. The only thing Elon did was allow that kind of speech for everyone instead of just people who are against whites. But Eevee doesn't catch stuff like this because she's not someone who can actually understand other people's feelings or perspectives. So this is not an empathetic person. This is a person who is just using the misfortune of others as a tool to beat people over the head with. Actually, I do care about the illegal Mexicans, and therefore I'm a better person than you. This is pretend empathy. If these people actually cared about black people, then they would understand that criticizing the per capita crime rates benefits black people the most because they're the ones who actually have to live around all the 13%ers. And if people like Eevee actually cared about Mexicans and weren't just using them as a political tool, then they would understand that the correct answer is to maintain border security in America so that illegals can't be used to help elect evil politicians who then go and terrorize the rest of the world with pathological foreign policy designed to keep dictators in power in poor countries so that those countries never get better. Mass immigration to the US is one of the primary ways that politicians who screw over the rest of the world keep getting voted in.
It is so upsetting to see the human being. Anyone I think would be upset to see someone cosplay a ICE police officer, but with a Frieren wig. It is very, very bizarre to me that someone would misinterpret a character who is trying to save humans.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do, and we're doing that by trying to exclude the abusers from our system, but people like you keep getting in the way. In fact, some of you move to entirely different countries just to help stifle their progress. So let me reiterate this for like the 20th time on my channel that in America, both the left and the right hate open borders. This is a policy that most people in America have hated for decades, but Eevee's not concerned with that. She's more concerned about the words that we use to describe foreigners.
And the way that they refer to these people just shows so much of this harmful rhetoric, calling them illegal aliens, which is such a nasty term.
Alien literally means foreigner. They are alien to our nation, and the reason why the legal language calls them illegal aliens is because they are foreigners who are violating federal law to reside in America. But now that we've talked about her ideas, I think this next section is more telling of the problems in socialization that led her to believe this stuff.
Of course, she talks about being anti-immigration, and one of her posts reads, "Mass immigration is looting and invasion, and that's all it has ever been for our nation specifically." When you press pro-immigration supporters and said invaders on this, they will tell you it's fine and openly tell you it's revenge. Well, I would never say it's revenge to loot or invade someone, but what I would say is that people do have rights to live in a different country when they were not born with the privilege of coming from a high economically developed country, or they just want to move to a different country. It's not that deep.
No, you can't. This is a part of the new radical leftist groupthink narrative where they're all saying now, why can't I live where I want to live?
Oh, everywhere has immigration laws. You can't just move wherever you want and just live there in any country. But what if I think that's also bad and stupid and wrong and dumb? What would be the worst thing that would happen if everyone just lived where they wanted to live. It's stupid. Just go. Let people live where they want to live.
No, not if you suck as a person. I don't want you coming into my country if you suck. Like, if you're a rapist, I don't want you here. Going back to Eevee, you would think that her being from England would make her more conscious of stuff like that. I don't want to live around bad people. I don't want to live around people who believe in child sacrifice or child marriage. I don't want to live around terrorists. I don't want to live around sex traffickers. We already have enough bad people here in America. We don't need more of them. The whole idea of why can't people just live where they want to live is incredibly naive when it comes to actual human behavior. One thing that Eevee doesn't consider in her video at all is that a ton of the people coming into America illegally are actively hostile to Americans. They actively hate us, they burn our flag, and they're here to use the flaws in our legal system to impose their values on us against our will.
We don't want to assimilate. We don't want to be like you. You people are so fucking sick, honestly. Assimilate or you're not American. Who are you?
That being said, what kind of person would want to permit someone who hates them to live anywhere near their vicinity? Well, I had some initial thoughts about that when I first watched this part of her video, and through another piece of her content, my initial thoughts were completely confirmed. In her very next video, Eevee talks about what her experience was like growing up. For context, this video is about her growing up as a lesbian.
I was being severely bullied at that time from the ages of like 11 to 13 by a friend of mine who basically it was like an abusive friendship that I was going through. So I had really low self-confidence and my self-esteem was really low. So I basically was like, even if I am gay, I don't think I could even like pull a girl, you know what I mean? I remember one of the things that she told me, this like horrible girl that I was friends with, she would say like, oh, no one will ever love you. And I think that she definitely caught on that I had a crush on this one girl like later on. And she would like say things that would like be like, oh, of course this girl wouldn't like you because you're so ugly and you're so this and that. I just agreed with her. I was like, yeah, there's no way.
I do want to take a second to say that she was a child during all of this, so I can empathize with how awful it must have been to have a friend like that around 11 years old. Really, one of the worst things that can happen to you as a child is being told very early on that you're useless, worth nothing, and no one will like you. If you poison a kid with information like that, it will have a pretty drastically negative effect on them by the time they become adults.
Yes, I do still have some kind of like traumas from this. And I think the other thing was that like I always thought, you know, I was always the weirdo, I was always the outsider, so I always felt that way. I still have a lot of self-image and self-confidence problems.
Yeah, and so what happened as a result of that is that people didn't like her and she had to put up with an abusive friend because she was desperate to have the attention and company of literally anyone. And I do want to take a second to emphasize that none of this stuff goes away when you become an adult. Adults treat people like shit too, they just tend to be more sophisticated about it than kids. You'll never stop bullying, particularly in the context that she was talking about in the video, because you can't force people to like you. However, the simple answer to not get bullied and not get stuck with shitty friends is to learn how to be desirable. People are calling you weird because you're missing social cues and acting inappropriately in certain situations. So learn how to limit the behaviors that people don't like and only do certain things around the appropriate people. So taking her past into account, what type of person would criticize America from a different country and say we have to let in an infinite number of people who hate us and don't share our values? Who tries to get along with people who hate them? Oh, right, it's all the kids who have trouble making friends who do that because they don't have any other choices. Like the kid in high school who tries to hang out with the popular crowd, not realizing that he's only in the group so they can bully him. So when I say I'm a heavy advocate of self-improvement, a part of the reason is so that young people don't end up with toxic friendships because they're so undesirable that no one wants to be around them. You can turn yourself into someone people want to talk to if you do the work. And also, from a long-term perspective, I don't want these types turning into adults who then take out their past childhood experiences on everyone else. Particularly for the sake of this video when it comes to the stupid political ideology of how you have to accept everyone who says they want to be in your group.
Of course, immigration does benefit us. You know, so many important jobs in Japan and the UK and in America are taken up by immigrants. And for example, in Japan, because the same rhetoric is happening in Japan, I know, for example, in convenience stores, a lot of these jobs are taken up by immigrants and also in nursing homes. Now, this also means that obviously these are jobs that are essential workers. They're really important, but a lot of Japanese people just can't do these jobs because they are very physically demanding and there's an aging population. So I do truly think that immigration does help in so many different ways.
Did she just say that working at 7-Eleven is an essential job? I mean, that was an example that she gave. I imagine that she's bringing up Japanese convenience stores because she's a foreigner living in Japan. Her video is very Japan-focused. And so the reason that convenience stores are the issue is because that is where you will very visibly see foreigners from India, just like America. And to that, I say no, it is not essential to mass import people so that 7-Eleven can have 50 stores in Japan all within a mile of each other that stay open for 24 hours a day. Late hours is why they're hiring Indians. You'll see Japanese people working the normal hours, but they probably don't want to work night shift hours for terrible pay, but the Indians will, so they import Indians, which is bad for the labor market. Stuff like this suppresses wages, which means people have to work more hours, which means they don't have time for families, and thus you get a shit economy with lots of old people. This is not a solution for low birth rates.
I think everyone deserves to move to the country that they want to be in, and I think that that is just generally a human thing. But I also do think it's important to note that you don't necessarily have to be doing an extremely difficult job just to immigrate to a different country.
Yes, you do. Immigration is a privilege, not a right. Unless, of course, you want to contest the ownership of a territory in combat. But maybe the skill requirements of a job is beside the point because these essential workers can't even do the basics of easy jobs as well as Japanese people can, or Americans when it comes to America, because the vast majority of immigrants to any country don't learn the language past beginner level, and it's annoying to have to deal with that, especially in large quantities. For example, when I was going to the airport to leave Japan, I had some issue with my train ticket, but don't worry, because the station had a highly qualified Indian on staff to help you with your problems, and he even speaks English. Guess what? He didn't speak English. So I switched to Japanese to explain what I wanted, and guess what? He didn't speak Japanese either. I ended up just ignoring him and figuring out the problem myself. And moreover, what I was getting at with the whole bullying thing with Eevee from her past is that not building the skills to overcome bullying often develops into this ideology when you become an adult of, we just have to absolutely accept and tolerate everything because I wasn't accepted once, and if people don't accept everything, I might not be accepted as an adult. Please accept me so I don't have to learn how to be likable. Really, it's a selfish impulse from people with unresolved issues from childhood that they aren't genuinely looking to put any effort into fixing, so they want people to just put up with them as they are. And I know it's them being selfish because the people of endless tolerance want you to accept every aspect of their character and the things that they do, but if you do or say something that they don't like, then they aren't going to accept you and they're going to tell you that you aren't good enough.
I noticed that a lot of the themes that these ultra-right-wing cosplayers tend to portray in their social medias are the exact same themes that are posted about on boards like 4chan, such as being violently anti-foreigners, being quote-unquote pro-white, talking about how they think that feminism has ruined society, and also talking about Japan as if it is this perfect, idealistic place, despite only having been tourists in Japan, having never lived there, sometimes never having even been there.
I love the constant elitism from this girl. I'm the only true fan of Frieren, and I'm more Japanese than all of you other people who want to be Japanese. Calm down, lady. I know you're one of the high-tier foreigners because you've been living in Japan for like 3 years, but let's be real, you don't speak Japanese to any significant extent, which is why you spend this whole interview here saying that you're an activist for Japan, yet all of your videos are in English. In fact, in a prior video, a friend and I caught you making subtitles that were so awkward that they were almost certainly written by AI, so she just pretends to speak Japanese fluently to make it look like she's in a position of authority on Japanese culture. Not that this is an unusual thing for social media influencers to do, by the way.
I'm going to order flawlessly. Samurai Mac 一つお願いします。
はい。ダブル肉厚ビーフが卵ベーコンございます。
醤油、サムライマックお願いします。
サムライマックが2種類ございます。
Too kind.
14 years of living in Japan, and he can't even order a hamburger without stumbling and screwing up on a basic would you like this or that question. His friend had to explain it to him. Maybe that's beside the point though, because the purpose of this video was to trick fans into watching a 30-minute commercial for Nissan. But neither of these two are experts on Japan. They are long-term tourists who refuse to integrate with the culture, which, dare I say, is incredibly antisocial behavior and really just means they're a burden on that society. Especially considering that they are both activists for open borders, and they are actively trying to change the politics of the country that they're a burden on. Hey look, it's a pride parade in Tokyo, Japan, and it's full of white foreigners. Weird.
Where are you from?
Iceland.
Iceland?
Yeah.
Do you live in Japan?
Yes, I live in Japan.
So you're living here in Japan for how long?
Only since January.
Like, what made you bring here in Japan?
My work.
But we work. But like, in Japan, it's like, LGBTQ is not really progressed in Japan.
No,
maybe it's...
but hopefully we will change that.
Yeah, great. I'm sure that's really going to help with the birthing crisis there. But what these types love saying is, look at all the economic benefits mass immigration provides. For one, economic benefits to who? GDP is not an indicator of the standard of living of the average citizen. Two, they always ignore the vast amount of cultural and social damage that comes as a result of bringing in millions of people into a country who did not grow up with the same value system, and not only do not speak your language, but refuse to learn it in the vast majority of cases. And because the economy is downstream of a country's cultural values, all of this in the long term will actually damage the economy and get rid of any short-term benefits mass immigration may have had. Everything is just money to these people because they don't have the social skills or pro-social behaviors to understand how much it changes your environment when you import millions of people into your country who don't speak your language.
I truly do believe that understanding the language and understanding the culture are symbiotic. You won't be able to utilize all of the terms and the phrases and the nuances of a language and convey that to a native speaker of said language if you don't understand the culture that the language comes from.
Right, and I think it goes the other way too. Language is a part of culture, and if you don't understand the language, then you can't understand a country's culture or even discuss shared values, which is essential for getting along with people. The values are embedded in the language. Like I said, it's not just about money. In my opinion, no amount of money is better than living around good people who I can communicate with and who share my values. You know, common sense values such as rape is bad, which is an idea that is not shared by lots of the people who are coming into America, and I don't want my country to become a PvP zone because 7-Eleven wants to pay their night shift workers less. The culture matters. And really, as for Eevee, I think the lack of empathy for how others feel that comes with thinking that you can just go to someone else's country and instantly start telling them what to do is a sign of low intelligence. And speaking of low intelligence, what I get really tired of is all these online personalities trying to pretend that they're experts in cultures that they know little to nothing about.
One of the biggest lies that we have been telling in Western media is that Japan does not have feminism and that feminism just doesn't exist in Japan.
So Eevee has captioned her short with, "Feminism is not a Western concept," implying that Japan created its own version of feminism, independent of countries like America that dumb right-wing grifters just aren't aware of. But just wait for it, this is going to be great. I'm so glad that I get to talk about this because I had to cut it from the other video.
One of the most active and famous Japanese feminists was active during the 1920s, so this is not a new thing. Japan has not suddenly received inspiration from the West to have feminism. I think it's really funny when people say that feminism doesn't exist in Japan because you are seeing it. You've definitely seen something that has its roots in feminism. Basically, what I wanted to say is that feminism does exist in Japan. It's always existed. You guys really, if you don't think that, please just do some research, read a book.
Very Japanese of you to brag about how smart you are and how you read so much. I can see you're really absorbing the culture.
I'm talking about stuff, I've researched this, and it's all Japanese literature that I've looked at whenever I talk about these things.
Me when I lie. But I like how her argument for, yeah, Japan has been feminist all along, it totally wasn't influenced by the West, is to give a single example and say, trust me, you've definitely seen something that has its roots in feminism. Of course, she's not going to provide any examples, but just believe her. And if you don't believe her, she implies that you're stupid by telling you to do her research for her. Did they teach you to do that in college? Here's the fun part. Eevee posts a Wikipedia article about a woman named Miss Ichikawa. This is about a 2-minute read. I know that's a lot for some people, but during the article, it says that Miss Ichikawa went to the US to talk to a women's suffrage leader. The great part is that Eevee actually screen caps this moment from the Wikipedia page as she's talking about how Japanese feminism was definitely not influenced by the West. I mean, this looks a lot like a direct lie from her. She cuts right under the part that talks about Western influence. I mean, even the LGBT stuff in Japan has likely been heavily influenced by Western liberals, considering that tons of the language that's used to talk about it is done with borrowed words from English.
A lot of LGBTQ plus terms are English, basically. Lesbian, you can say lesbian in Japanese. Very original.
Not that Eevee would know any of this because her Japanese level is very low. Anyway, Eevee's video on Mac cosplaying as Frieren is about America and Japan, two cultures that she didn't grow up in, yet she has the audacity to tell us all what to do and be a know-it-all, while making numerous mistakes like saying the President of America can write laws, which really is just arrogance, and probably why she had trouble making friends in school. Not saying that it wasn't bad that she was bullied, but looking at this as an adult, I think the reason why she had to put up with a toxic friendship is because she does a lot of things that make her unlikable to people who aren't toxic. Cutting context to lie to her audience being one of those things. Many people can't attract good friends because they are toxic themselves. But keep in mind that the especially offensive part of all of this is that she frequently says that most of her audience is American.
My audience is majority in America,
Mhm.
so I post around 3 to 4 a.m. every day. For me, that doesn't really bother me because this is my dream. This is what I want to do. This is like so important to me.
So her audience is primarily American, and she very openly is trying to influence our politics as a foreigner who doesn't live here and therefore doesn't have to deal with the societal consequences of the policies or the straight up disinformation that she promotes.
Feminism has always been around in Japan, and I think it's not a Western concept.
Speaking of doing things that make you unlikable and the whole Frieren cosplay drama, Eevee goes on to essentially call Mac and right-wing anime watchers a bunch of murderers because a cosplayer named Ashley Paxton, who also went by Squid Kid, chose to end her own life.
One of the worst cases of this is cosplayers being bullied for their skin color, people using horrible racist memes, which are absolutely not funny at all, because why do you think it's funny to bully someone who looks beautiful? One of the most heartbreaking examples of this is a cosplayer who unfortunately took their own life because of the bullying online, the majority of which was horrible racist rhetoric being used to try and make fun of them and their cosplays. And that really shows the severity of this problem, and it shows you that this is an issue that actually is life-threatening, because it's not just the case of annoying right-wing grifters who, we see on Twitter and we're like, I'll just block them and move on. It is also the case that this is actually harming young Black people.
I'm not really sure why this was included in the video because as far as Eevee has shown, Mac is not a part of this event, so it seems irrelevant. However, because the topic is about Mac and her ice cosplay and saying that she's pro-white, I'm guessing that Eevee includes this story to say that Mac somehow contributed to Squid Kid, a Black girl, ending her own life. Now, before I say anything else, I will say this, which is that everybody gets bullied and receives hate comments on the internet. If someone chooses to take their own life because they can't handle mean comments online, then that mental health struggle almost certainly originated way before people said they didn't like her cosplays. Now, doing research on this, there really is no specific information on how Ashley Paxton died or why. The family has chosen to keep everything private, including the cause of death. Personally, I think this is a smart decision, though context clues would indicate that Ashley's death was mental health related. However, considering that we don't have any information from the family on the possible reasons for her death, I think it's extremely unfair to say that your political enemies are responsible for this. Eevee does post a quote from this article here, but they didn't provide any evidence that bullying on the internet is why Ashley chose to end her life. As far as I can tell, this is just a rumor that was spread by this Instagram account that has no proof to back it up. In fact, 2 days after this was posted, the family wrote a message on Ashley's Instagram account asking people to not honor her with assumptions, finger-pointing, inaccuracies, or accusations, which to me looks a lot like a direct response to the clear race baiting that came from this anime account. And I imagine that they're saying that because the reality is that Ashley had a lot going on in her life. The funeral service is still live, so I watched it, and while it was heartwarming that so many people showed up for her, it was still very sad. This was not a fun thing to research, and I'm sorry that the family had to go through losing her. But during the service, her father states that Ashley's mother died from chronic illness when she was only in middle school. So with that said, having a parent die when you're young is incredibly traumatic, and we don't know how Ashley chose to handle that. She may have still been dealing with that loss daily close to a decade later. And I'm bringing this up because treating mental health issues requires that you look at the root causes instead of some superficial bullshit that's convenient for your political argument. Also, what certainly seems to be the case is that Ashley's family did not want her death to be used as a political tool to spread divisiveness, much like Eevee is doing in her video. So, Eevee, if you're wondering which social landmines you're stepping on that cause people to not like you, this would be one of them.
I'm doing my research.
Yeah, I find that hard to believe. I find it much easier to believe that you're radicalizing people into false beliefs by doing crap research and not considering more than one side to the story. I mean, did you even check Ashley's Instagram or try to look for comments from people who knew her personally? Or did you just spend 60 seconds reading a single article and thought that was sufficient enough to essentially call conservatives a bunch of murderers while implying that Mac was a contributor to it by including this news story after you spent 16 minutes calling her the most horrendous online racist that you've ever seen?
I came across the account of one of the most shocking racist women that I have ever seen on the internet.
Personally, I found this whole part of the video to be quite disgusting, and I think that Eevee is a really bad person for doing that. Also, Eevee, your whole video is about you not liking someone's cosplay and being quite discriminatory towards white people in the process. I hope that Mac doesn't get bullied and stays healthy, or you might find yourself in a moral dilemma here. Anyway, after the murder accusations, Eevee says this.
I'm descended from Holocaust survivors. So I don't think that there's anything wrong with my ancestors, but I don't know about you. It depends.
Just a little creator advice, Eevee. You probably shouldn't be telling a bunch of people on Twitter that you're in favor of mass immigration and your family is full of Holocaust survivors. They might start saying things. Though, in an extreme bit of irony, Eevee ends her video about Mac's cosplay by saying this.
Cosplay is for everyone. And I wanted to end this video on a positive note with sharing that Kenzie has in fact been banned from a lot of the local conventions in her area. The Instagram user by the name of Cordial Harlequin posted about how Kenzie was local to her region in St. Louis. But when they found Twitter photos of her wearing a MAGA hat, they banned her immediately and she stopped showing up to the local cons.
So there are two parts of this. First is the extreme irony of her saying, I think people should be allowed to go wherever they want. Wait, not people who disagree with me. This goes back to the whole, I can't have anyone who has different beliefs in my hobby. These people have ruined many different hobbies by inserting their stupid politics into apolitical spaces.
I don't know a great deal about the politics of the cosplay world, to be honest with you.
It's kind of how, unfortunately, a lot of culture-dominated things go. If you're right of Karl Marx, you're viewed as a crazy person.
The Super Smash Bros. Community is another example of that. It's full of radicals who turn everything into politics and people who you shouldn't let around children. The second part of this is that I thought it was kind of suspicious that Eevee emphasizes the specific city that Mac lives in when she could have easily made her point without mentioning that. Personally, I don't ever use specific information about where people live unless they have said it publicly or I have their permission. And by that, I'm implying that this kind of looks like a sneaky attempt to encourage doxing. So I sent Mac an email on this, and she informed me that the thread that Eevee showed was made during a time where many people were trying to dox her over a viral tweet that was honestly not that offensive. Also, saying this post is offensive is an incredibly ironic argument to make, considering how many wokies shout cultural appropriation every time a white woman puts on a kimono or wears dreadlocks. Like, I would expect to see something more openly racist, especially considering that just like Eevee, this person also appears to be saying that Mac caused Ashley Paxton to end her life. Followed by, ironically, saying that the solution to this problem is bullying. Allow me to remind everyone that before this post was made, Ashley's family wrote this message asking people to have mature conversations regarding this subject, and also said it would be her wish for people to respond to her loss with listening, forgiveness, compassion, and patience. So here's my argument. Eevee starts her video by saying Mac is one of the most racist accounts that she's ever seen. She then talks about a girl ending her life because of racist Twitter users, and then shows this thread stating where Mac lives that is very openly calling for people to attack those that they have deemed racist. Now, in this context, one might interpret the term bully very generously. However, that term was used directly after someone essentially is accusing Mac of being a murderer. Also, considering the whole punch a Nazi, by the way, everyone we disagree with is a Nazi narrative, along with all the political violence that comes from radical leftists, what do they mean by bully? So Eevee, why are you trying to encourage people to investigate where Mac lives by signal boosting this thread that gives up personal information and says attacking her would be virtuous?
At the end of the day, if you're going to be openly racist in public, I don't think that you should be allowed in spaces that are supposed to be safe, and, well, you're always welcome on 4chan if you feel lonely.
Okay, this is perfect. I think Eevee gets it. You see, I have this very big safe space called the United States of America, and in my safe space, I don't want millions of people with vastly different values to be allowed in, especially if they refuse to assimilate, and especially if they are hostile. I mean, do you know how many of these foreigners who are coming into America are very openly racist? It's like a ton of them. So I'm glad Eevee and I are on the same page here. I told you that being in favor of border security is a bipartisan issue. Now, Mac did make her own response to Eevee's video that she uploaded to YouTube and Twitter. It runs about 45 minutes, and I think the best part of it was this part here.
It's like, can you not do anything else with your life? I don't know.
Do something with your life is especially amusing, as you know if you've been following me, that I'm a wife and mother of multiple beautiful children, which is precisely why I'm worried about the state of my nation and their safety. I would definitely consider that doing something with my life, way more than posting silly cosplays online.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny for Matt to call Eevee a selfish, childless loser who doesn't care about the negatives of mass immigration because she's not responsible for anyone's safety.
Like, I did not want to be the mom. I did not want to have a baby. I did not want to be in that role, even in a game.
She's talking about playing house as a kid here and using it to explain how she doesn't want children, which is why I say statements like this next one are just fake empathy to promote her politics.
Japan right now makes it really hard to want to have children
but also to have a career, because mothers here are not treated the best. And I think that's one of the reasons why the population is not doing so well, really.
Gee, I'm so glad we have help with the Japanese birthing crisis from the anti-natalist, terminally offended lesbian who doesn't understand their culture and can't speak their language. What could possibly go wrong? Note that the other British foreign expat who also doesn't really speak Japanese and who thinks mass immigration is a good solution to the birthing crisis also does not want or have kids. I'm noticing a pattern. Oh my god, on Chris's Reddit, someone got downvoted into oblivion because people were offended that he politely asked if Chris was going to have kids. This is some doomer shit. Again, I'm noticing a pattern. Anyway, Matt goes on to point out that as a foreign guest in the country, all Eevee does is complain about Japan.
The fact is, Eevee herself has numerous short videos complaining about different aspects of Japanese culture from a feminist perspective. She's actually a great example herself of someone moving into a nation and then being angry it doesn't welcome her, even though she's trying to change it and thinks it should change.
And why would you want to welcome someone into your home who doesn't speak your language, is constantly saying you suck, and is trying to tell you what to do? I think Mac's statements about Eevee are pretty accurate here. Eevee essentially spent this entire video complaining about Japan and talking about how she's going to change the country, despite not even being fluent in the language. I mean, if she was, all of her activism wouldn't be in English, right?
Most foreigners here just, instead of coming here to challenge themselves, they're coming here to find an easier way of life and just kind of enjoy the fruits of Japan without actually putting in the work to also respect the culture at the same time. I know foreigners who live here. Most of the foreigners who live here are like, wow, Japan has great healthcare, Japan is so safe, but I don't like how Japan is politically. I don't like Japan's views on this and that, and I want to change that.
And let me reemphasize here by saying that I am almost certain that she speaks very little Japanese. This sentence here is so awkward that even my crap knowledge of the language can instantly recognize that it was written by AI. The overuse of the word I is a beginner mistake that AI makes constantly because AI translators have no idea how to handle pronouns in Japanese. This mistake is made so frequently that I don't even think she can read basic kanji, because she definitely would notice it and try to correct it if she did. Also note that this video is only 3 months old, so there's no way she's made any significant improvement since she released it. I mean, holy shit, I did not realize she was grifting this much when I put her in the video about trash taste. Does she even have any Japanese friends? Why would you live there if you hate it so much? I think the only positive thing she said about Japan is that she likes anime. I mean, that's like if I uprooted my entire life to move to America despite really hating it because I'm a big fan of Spider-Man or something. This makes no sense.
I have met so many people. They have lived in Japan for like 3-4 years. They don't know how to speak Japanese. Yes, we Japanese try to speak a little bit of English, but we would prefer to communicate in Japanese.
And on a final note, Matt decides to dispel some misinformation about her that was spread by Eevee.
I did not stop attending conventions because I was banned. I stopped attending conventions because I had multiple children, which are obviously my top priority. I have yet to receive official word that I've been banned from any convention, though I do suspect I'm banned from at least one for sure. It's amusing that lefties are trying to take credit for me not attending conventions because they can't possibly imagine that I'm doing anything more important than dressing up as anime characters and going to conventions.
What an own. So apparently she was only banned from a single convention, maybe, and the reason she wasn't going to other ones is because she was busy creating a family instead of choosing her career over human connection. The great thing about this is that Eevee is incredibly smug about flaunting her stupid college degree and uses that to say that essentially she is a better person than Mac, as if a piece of paper matters more than surrounding yourself with people who love and appreciate you.
Like, I have a bachelor's degree in philosophy.
Philosophy? What a useless degree to pay for. You can read philosophy books on your own. They're on Audible for like $10 each. What jobs even require a certificate in that? That's like being smug about a degree in gender studies, which I'm almost certain is just a radicalization pipeline, with the singular goal of wasting 4 years of some young person's time and leaving them with a degree with no market value so that their only option is to become a smug political activist or some HR rep that everyone in the company hates. But on the topic of political radicalism, like I said, these ideas tend to appeal to people who aren't socially well adjusted, which is why this next thing makes sense.
Living with children, Hassan has a negative 49%, 0% favorability. But for the people that are living with their parents, he's at plus 30.
Yeah, I'm sure this shocks nobody. The people who are into this stuff and have all of these dumb luxury beliefs about how society should work can get away with believing stupid stuff because they're being shielded from the negative consequences of those beliefs by people who take care of them. Who would have thought that people whose parents pay for everything would be into the idea of getting free shit from the government? I mean taxpayers. Well, the net taxpayers. This is yet again why I'm such a self-improvement addict, because I want people to pull themselves out of these situations so they can start living their lives instead of being destitute for like 10 years after they graduate high school and taking up role models who promote the worst values.
And I think there's things about each person that are admirable, but you shouldn't look at people to be role models. You should look at actions as things to model yourself after, rather than trying to completely copy an individual and then take everything that they do and make it yourself. So that's it.
He's right to say that, because people are complicated and flawed, and nobody has the perfect life no matter how much they try to portray it that way. In fact, the more perfect people show themselves to be on social media, the more likely I think there's some secret that they're trying to hide. I also do think that Asmongold is right when he says that you should pay attention to the aspects of people that make them admirable. Not just because it will allow you to learn that behavior from them, but also because seeing the good in people will generally just make you a more positive and more likable person. I think if you pay attention, probably everybody has some sort of positive aspect or redeeming quality, despite their flaws. Wait, what the hell? As I was finishing this video, Eevee uploaded a post criticizing Islamic countries for child marriage. Holy shit, I can't believe we found a Wokey with a humanizing feature. It's been a while. But why are you in favor of mass immigration if you have this take? The whole point of border security is to keep things like child marriage and child trafficking out of the West. I definitely did not expect her to criticize Islam, but I still don't like her though. And to continue what Asmongold was saying, first of all, he's talking about Hassan Piker, of all people, saying that he's a role model.
Part of the reason why I think
How can you be a decent role model? You literally support terrorists, you pay for sex, and you just sit in your room all day advocating for terrorism. Like, how's that being a decent role model?
Right, but I think a part of the reason that people look past stuff like this and have overly idealistic views of social media influencers is because they just don't have a lot of life experience. So it comes as a shock when a favorite influencer of yours criticizes some other influencer that you don't like, only to later find out that he was kind of doing a lot of the same shit that he was criticizing. Understand that influencers are some of the most poorly socially adjusted people because we are often rewarded for doing things that are socially inappropriate. Clavicular being a great example of someone who is constantly rewarded for antisocial behavior. Or even me, people get really pissed off when I talk over movies and TV shows in my personal life, but if you talk over people's content on YouTube, it'll get you over 1 million subscribers. The point is that being likable matters. Not being liked by other people will have a severely negative impact on your life, especially if it makes you so desperate that you'll accept anyone who's willing to be around you. And what I find personally for people who have trouble being liked by others is that it's not about what they should do, it's more about what they should stop doing. And really, those tend to be the more challenging things to fix. As difficult as it is, it's much easier to say I should go to the gym 3 times a week than it is to say, hey, if I want to lose weight, maybe I should stop eating so much damn food. You know exercising is the easier thing to do because all the fat acceptance flunkies constantly virtue signal about taking a yoga class, but never about how they stopped eating candy 5 times a day. Last, I also think people see this philosophically as something like it takes 10 positive behaviors to outweigh a negative behavior. Bad behavior really stands out to people, so I think it's much better to start by spending more focus on learning how to limit negative things that you do as you search for positive things to implement. Anyway, thanks for watching, follow me on Twitter, and I'll see you in the next video.